like everything else in the world, the software methods or software process models do not always answer everything. They do have problems, and in fact sometimes the process models are the real problems the organization has. Overall, for every model or every process approach or every method, there's a method champion, a person or group of people who are definite that their model or method does everything correctly and that it has no problems whatsoever, and that there's people who are simply not clever enough to use their approach. Well, obviously these people are wrong. There's always a group of problems like goal displacement or political reasons why some formalized methods fail, or in general why some process models may become too difficult or costly or even counterintuitive to use. So if we go into the general problems, the first problem is of course the definitional anomaly. So what exactly is a development method or process model? There's actually a problem that some models only cover so much of the process. Some models say that you should gather requirements from customers, for example, but they take no action of actually collecting things. For example, Scrum is a really good example of this. Scrum model is known to be very good. It's very efficient and it's really excellent for developing stuff with really small group or even larger groups. But it has no say on how to do testing work, how to gather requirements, or how to do verification and validation, whereas something like Rational Unified Process has painstakingly accurate description of all these activities. So, considering that both say that they are process models, it's obvious that they can't be used in same scenarios because they are really different from each other. On the other hand, some approaches may be really close to each other, but simply call themselves something different or something new because they are sold as a commercial model or said to be really new thing that explains everything and solves all your problems. It's a bit of a generalization, but for example, many process improvement models have this sort of a problem where they are so close to each other that it's actually really to start seeing patterns of generic model, since test improvement, for example, test improvement model, test process improvement, testing maturity model, and several others share lots and lots of features. So, also, where do these process models come from? Obviously, they are based on success stories somewhere. No one would be making a model simply based on thin air, and in most occasions these are based on some empirical evidence. But from one organization, with one group of people, with one type of product or limited type of products. So the generalization from one organization to an entire model, which should be usable in any place, is sometimes really lacking. And of course this means that the gaps on actual experience are filled with the intuition and experience of the authors, which means that if the authors are unexperienced in areas which are outliers of software industry, like games for example, or entertainment software in general, they may come up with a model that's really good for generic software or certain domains of software, but can't address the problems of certain industries. Additionally, the scientific knowledge or scientific proof that model works is quite non-existent in many occasions. There's not that much studies or research into the applicability of models, not because it would be harmful for the models, it actually would help them that they are validated, but because it's really hard thing to do. There's sometimes also hidden motives, like political situation or social influences, and in many occasions when we are working with several people, the problem is that even if we have all the information, we may not see the problem itself or the actually understand the phenomena underlying the organization. Some organization may be simply working well together because the people, they like each other. On the other hand, on the other flip side of the coin, some process model may not work in organization, or some organization may be beyond any help of any process model simply because people loathe each other in that organization. So obviously the process model is sometimes more than, it's less influential than we would like to believe. Also, if we try to formalize our work to high level, we also lose sight in the development goal, and this is actually a problem with the software process models, since in many occasions the reporting what we have done has actually overtaken the actual doing in the organization. Of course, some say that this is sort of a Dilbert-esque made-up problem, but in fact in many organizations where, for example, I have been doing research and studies on how organizations function, there's a too heavy model in use, and when things get tough, there's a launch coming by, and there's a stress, there's a limited time and budget, the code crunch is coming. The first thing that happens is that the process model completely falls apart, and the organization just starts to focus on development and stops reporting stuff because it's seen as it's a complete waste of time. So what is the actually important thing you should be doing? Is the development or advancing your project, not writing a report simply because the process model says that you should be doing that. Also, in some cases, the process model applied may be something that's not usable in the organization. Like I said earlier, the two rigid models are abandoned, and some organizations may function well with any model, and more likely some organizations will not function no matter what the model is. So the problem is that some people think that the methods are universal. You can take method from one organization to another, but in each organization the product is different, the customers are different, the personnel are different, and probably the internal culture in the organization is different. So the methods are good guidelines, good books to use when you are developing your organization, but your organization and its traditions and methods of working should always be the ones that are taking priority in development. Lastly, the idea that the process is the God on whom all the people in the organization worship it's simply wrong. Much of the knowledge, the actual knowledge and experience is tacit, meaning that it's inside people's head. You can write documentation, but people simply don't have time to read all the documentation explaining experiences. Also, some experience is informed that you can't teach people. The people have to actually learn by doing. And the biggest factor in efficiency is people. And many formal methods like to think that their roles and tasks and processes and outcomes and inputs are able to replace the human experience. Of course, things aren't like that. We can't create the McDonald's of software industry. The people are the key on successful development, and you can't consider person as a part of an engine, because you can replace your programmer, for example, but the new programmer will need to take time to get accustomed with the project, and the person who left your project or even your company took his or her experience away from your disposal. So you really should not consider your organization or your process model to be the thing that drives your organization. No, it's the people in your organization. Finally, there's also political reasons. These are collected from a book by Fitzgerald and others, and it's actually sort of wrong reasons to have a process model. First problem is that people tend to professionalize their development work, meaning that they do things in a professional manner simply because they want to appear more professional than they are. There's also political plays to get more power to developers, and for example audit trail, documentation trail to protect against wrong decisions or that you can blame someone else. The comfort and confidence factor that proper practices were being followed is something that it's almost as religion. If you are doing this the proper way, we can't do anything wrong. Similarly, the same problem goes with the ISO certification and other official certification and standardization processes. You may do it, and it probably will help your organization, but if you are following it just to ensure that everything is done properly, then you might have problem.